Some struggles hide in plain sight. They can last for years, sometimes decades, while the outside world sees something completely different. For Robin, that struggle took the form of a 40-year battle with obsessive eating and bulimia. Beneath the behavior was something deeper: shame, trauma, and the quiet belief that something inside needed to be fixed before life could truly feel aligned. This conversation explores how that long journey of healing eventually led Robin to develop what she calls the Harmony Method, a framework built around awareness, commitment, mastery, service, leadership, and freedom. Robin describes harmony not as perfection, but as alignment, the point where the inner world and the outer life begin to move in the same direction. Along the way, we talk about trauma, personal responsibility, and the work it takes to recognize the patterns that keep people stuck. We also explore how modern life, social media, and constant external pressure can pull people further away from their own center. This isn't a conversation about eliminating chaos. It's about learning how to stay grounded inside it, about creating space for reflection, choosing silence over reaction, and slowly rebuilding a life that feels internally aligned rather than externally performed. Welcome to No One Is Normal, the podcast where real stories remind us that none of us are alone. You can also visit the website www.bradhhill.com or www.nooneisnormal.co for resources, updates, and future podcast episodes. I am Brad H. Hill, and each week we talk about the messy, the complicated, and the deeply human moments that shape us and remain in our memories. I am not here to tell anyone how to live. I am here to offer the stories, the insights that made me realize that no one is normal, including me, because healing starts when self-honesty begins. Hi, Robin. Thank you for coming on the show today.
Thanks, Brad. Thank you for having me. It's nice to see you again.
It's nice seeing you as well. You often state that harmony is a natural state. What does that
Mhm.
actually mean in everyday life?
Yeah, so harmony is our intended natural state because we're intended to live what our soul intended us to do in this lifetime. The reason why our soul incarnated into this body, why we are a soul being having a human being experience. But unfortunately, harmony is not always our natural expression. I would say more likely disharmony is. But ideally, harmony is, but it takes work to come into a state of harmony. It takes a state of alignment between your inner world and your outer purpose. And unfortunately, with having to pay the bills and things don't go right, and there's a lot of reasons why we get out of alignment. And so the key is to learn to move into a state of harmony or into a state of alignment between your inner and outer world so that when these perceived negative things happen in your life, you have a different set of tools to manage it.
Is it kind of in some way similar to like grounding, kind of like that theory and principle?
Like grounding your
Yeah.
energy.
Yep.
I would think so. I would think so. It's almost like getting out of your head and into your body because your body has so much wisdom, and your body is where your soul lives. You're the vessel for your soul. And so if you can get out of your head, which is, your mind is here to protect you mostly, right? Your mind is different from your brain. Your brain is what you use to be smart and achieve things in life, but your mind is biggest job, I think, is to protect us from all the elements that may impact us. So when you're living in your mind, you're also living from a state of fear. When you ground in your body, then you're able to access what we all know as intuition. And intuition to me is your soul talking to you. So when you say, God, intuitively, that doesn't feel right, or I know that's not right. Like that knowing of what's right and wrong in your life is your intuition talking to you. Or in my work is your soul talking to you and guiding you to achieve what it came here to accomplish. And it doesn't mean everybody needs to jump out of their job and become a spiritual teacher like myself or a writer. It can be whatever it is that you've decided. What is it that you need to learn? What does the trauma that you've experienced in your lifetime been trying to teach you? Because honestly, everybody, if you went back and looked at the traumas that you've had, it's a pattern. It's a learning that you need to figure out what is your pattern of trauma. And then that's typically what your soul has come here to heal in this lifetime. And then once you've healed that, you're able to do whatever you need to do in the outside world to make your life feel successful.
Yeah, I think some people don't want to get into the kind of the internals of their own working, right? They want to just kind of ignore it, and I want to put on blinders and just continue to do what I'm doing. But until you really soul search and really look internally, you really don't know what you want. You're just doing kind of what you're told.
Yeah. And I agree with you, Brad, because, we're here to talk about my new book, Harmony, but the book I wrote before called Feast and Famine, Healing Addiction with Grace was about the idea that what we're all really addicted to is suffering. Like when you say put the blinders on and just keep going, it's because we're somewhat and I was thinking the other day, that sounds terrible when I say that we're all addicted to suffering. But we are because our trauma patterns that we haven't healed create suffering in our life. And so we think that suffering is it's just the way it is. My parents were this, my ex was this, my job sucks. Like it's just the way it is. And it's not the way it is. And that's what takes us out of harmony is when we believe that the energy of suffering is the way it's supposed to be. And that's why I say that we're all addicted to suffering because we think that's the way it is. And then what happens is we pick our secondary poison, uh, you might say, whether it's alcohol, cigarettes, food, sugar, addiction, porn even, and Netflix or whatever it is, we pick it and because it makes us feel better from all of our suffering that we're addicted to. So once we start looking at what is my trauma pattern? Why is this happening over and over again? And I'm telling you, it's happening over and over again because your soul wants you to learn it in this lifetime so that next time you return, you can have a happier, better life. If you and if you learn it and heal it now, you'll have a happier and better life this lifetime, and you'll be in a state of harmony.
So your belief is a little more reincarnation, a little more spiritual and rebirth than
Yeah,
kind of typical like
totally.
religion. Yeah,
Well, I mean, I think religions believe in reincarnation as well. Most of them do. They just don't focus on it. I think
right.
spiritual teachers focus on it, but even I do believe that they believe that we're here. That I would say most religions believe that we are a soul being having a human being experience, but they just don't harp on it because they have other things to harp on. And that's written down, right?
When you look back at your journey, what part of your story do people misunderstand the most?
What part do they misunderstand? That's a good question, Brad. Um, well, I think what was happening for me is no one really knew that I was in addiction for 40 years, unless I told them. And when I wrote my book, Feast and Famine, there were a lot of shocked people because I'm a pretty well-known in my area spiritual teacher, but I always felt like almost like a poser, right? Like an imposter because I had this issue. So my addiction was to obsessive eating and bulimia. And so I think that's what people find it hard to believe that I actually did that. And what it was for me when I looked at my trauma patterns, what I discovered was that I was addicted to, excuse me, that I had a deep fear of being humiliated and then feeling the shame. And when I looked at my trauma patterns, I actually drew a picture of myself, a little stick figure, and I looked at all the bad things that happened in my life, starting from when I was really little. Like even when I was like 4 years old, my dad had washed his car, and there were six of us kids, and he made us all put our little hands up and to figure out whose handprint was on his new clean car, right? And mine was the closest. And he said, now you're in you have to stay in your room all day. And my mom said that I yelled for hours and hours and hours. I didn't do it. I didn't do it. You don't believe me. I didn't do it. And it was the beginning like of a trauma pattern of my dad not believing me and then feeling all this shame around being humiliated and feeling shame. And then as I noticed like my whole life, it just kept happening and happening and happening until I could see the pattern, until I was willing to give up that pattern so that I could heal the suffering. And Brad, I did a lot of therapy work. I did a lot of spiritual healing, reading, energy work. But someone said something in a podcast. That's why I love podcasts, because someone can say one thing that changes your life. And what this person said was, nobody can humiliate you unless you give them the title of judge. And if you don't give them the title of judge, they're just giving you their opinion. So you can say thank you or screw you. Like you can say whatever you want after they do it. But if you don't give them the title of judge, they cannot humiliate you and then you don't feel shame. And it was just like this light bulb went off in my life where I'm like, wow, I am never going to feel that again because it's just their opinion. And that allowed me to find the strength to then work on the secondary addiction because overeating and bulimia is a form of self-humiliation. And so I was self-humiliating so that nobody would humiliate me. So as soon as I was able to work on that trauma pattern of humiliation and shame, then I could heal the one that people might say, oh, that's a real addiction. And maybe not, because they call it food disorders. They don't call people's addictions to sugar and overeating and bulimia and anorexia addictions, but I do because they are. I don't know why they're downplayed. Um, but once I could heal the other, then I could work on those and I could stop. And now I'm good. Now I'm 9 years sober, and in recovery. Yeah, thank you. So yeah, that's what I think. Mhm.
Congratulations on that. I know that's a feat in itself.
Yes.
That is where a lot of people struggle is that continual kind of push to keep on the path you want to be on, and sometimes slip ups happen, right? And sometimes the people that have a minor slip up have issues trying to get off of that, and then they're beating themselves up for having it, and then it creates this another wave of just regret, and then they kind of fall back into that cycle instead of kind of getting out of it and being able to say, I made a mistake, I'm moving forward, now I got to get back into it. And like you said, going back into that suffering cycle.
Yeah, and one of the teachings that I learned that I realized might have been missing from my book Feast and Famine, and I had to go back and write it is the idea of long-term recovery. What is it? Right? What is it? And how do we stay in long-term recovery? And obviously, because I was doing my work to understand what was driving my suffering, that is the key to being able to not have to use other substances to make me feel better from my suffering. So long term, I think that true long-term recovery requires the integration of mind, body, spirit, and emotion. I truly believe, and I do this, so I'm talking from a place of knowing. Every day I do something related to mind, listening to a book, body, exercising, walking, or either lifting weights, spirit, I meditate or just go into prayer. Emotion, I still look at my emotions, like, and heal those, the trauma, because remember, we're made up of parts, right? We are made up of parts. So there's parts of us that are still upset and hurt. And so when those arise in me, I take a look at them, I spend time with them, I attempt to heal them. So it's a recovery, long-term recovery is not just not drinking beer, right? It's requires you to understand what drove you, what suffering drove you to drink that beer, and then what can you do on a daily basis to make sure that your life is healthy and vibrant. And this is would be a good segue into the harmony method because that's what I used to come into long-term recovery.
Well, why don't you speak on it?
The harmony method is comprised of, I call them six elements, and or you might call them six stages. The first part of the harmony method is awareness. And most people think of awareness as, oh, something's come into my view. It's much more powerful than that. It's what it's the recognition of what does your soul want you to do next. And I mean literally next. I don't mean 10 years from now. I mean, what's next on your path? What's next to making your life better? One of the things that people say, I don't know, you're a spiritual messenger, Robin. You can listen to your soul. But everybody can listen to their soul. I always suggest to people that they write it down, have a journal, and just every day ask the same question. What does my soul want me to know today? And just start writing. Don't think about it. Don't try to make it pretty. Just start putting words down and then you get better at it and then all of a sudden you're like my soul want me to I call your brother and make amends, right? Like whatever it is, go for a run today, right? You're just going to write it down every day we're doing something mind, body, spirit, and emotion to feel better and more integrated because think of us, Brad, as like a system, right? So what is the awareness today? Once you know that awareness, so for me, the awareness became in my addiction that I was actually going to die from this. Because the last time I was bulimic, I had blood coming from my nose, my head was throbbing. I could feel my organs starting to do something in my body, like it was became this whole physical thing that I knew that if I didn't stop, I would die from this. And I didn't want to, obviously. So then comes the next element of the harmony method, which is commitment. What am I willing to commit to in order to reach long-term recovery and stay there? And so that to me was working with a wonderful therapist, getting deeply and more involved on my spiritual path. I actually gave up chocolate because chocolate was a real trigger for me. I told everyone I was allergic to it so they wouldn't bug me about not eating chocolate. People are very sensitive about you not eating chocolate.
They're sensitive. If they're drinkers, they're sensitive of you not drinking too. And
Yes.
they're concerned that you're not drinking with them. It's like, well, I
Yeah.
don't have to partake to be part
Yeah.
of
So I
your
say
crowd.
I'm allergic to chocolate. I just gave, because I gave up my trigger food, right? And I'm okay with it. I have discovered other things. I didn't know caramel and vanilla tasted so good, right? Like, I didn't know that because if it didn't have chocolate on it, it wasn't worth it to me. So it's a new identity for me, not chocolate girl. And so that's the commitment. And the commitment to doing my healing and doing whatever it takes to come into long-term recovery. The next one on the path is mastery. So mastery is an interesting one too, because mastery is the embodiment of whatever you're learning. Like you need to become that. Like you need to become, I needed to become long-term recovery. Like everything that I do, I don't uh, I don't find myself in places that are triggering for me. Um, I used to have this thing with Dairy Queen. I would get like four hot fudge sundaes at once and eat them all. But I don't go to Dairy Queen anymore unless I'm feeling really strong. I know that sounds silly, but you don't go if you're alcoholic and you're in recovery, you don't go to bars unless you really get it, unless you can really unless you're in long-term recovery and you're very confident in yourself. So I try not to do that. But for me, it was more the embodiment of the teachings that I was learning and the knowing of how to be a healthier version of myself. And I did that. And then the next one is now those are all internal things. Now we're taking the turn outside because I shared at the very beginning that harmony is the alignment of your inner world with your outer activities or your outer purpose. So awareness, commitment, and mastery are kind of on the inner world. And then we take the turn and we go to service, which is the next element. How are you going to take what you've done and share it with the world? And the world could be your family, right? Your best friend. I happen to decide that I'm going to write a book and I'm going to write books and I'm going to go on podcasts and I'm going to talk to the world about it. That's my choice, right? Because it's not an easy choice. It's not easy to talk about what was wrong with your life, and to be vulnerable like that. But I knew that I had to. So service, how are you going to take what you've mastery, what you committed to, what you became aware of, and then what you committed to, and then what you mastery, how are you going to share that with others? How are you going to be of service, right? External, right? So I wrote the book. Then I wrote Harmony. So this is Harmony is my fifth book. And then the next is leadership. So in this work, what I discovered is that leadership begins with self-leadership. You cannot be a good leader, an external leader, if you're not a good self-leader. And so what does self-leadership mean? Self-leadership means that you are walking the walk of what it is that you're doing, whatever it is. If you're running a business, if you're if you're a therapist, you're going to therapy, right? If you're running a business, you believe in your business. Like you got to walk the walk before you can convince somebody else to walk the walk with you and that external leadership. So to me, leadership is always self-leadership first. When someone looks at me, do they say, geez, for someone her age, because I'm older, for someone her age, she looks pretty good. Like, and she has a lot of energy and she's very vibrant. Um, Even today, I was teasing my husband. I said I had to put my hood on in the gym because all these old guys were like wanting to talk to me. And I'm like, I'm trying to work out, right? But I look like I'm someone you'd want to talk to, right? Because I'm vibrant and have a lot of energy. And I'm like, go away, I'm lifting weights. So, so that's leadership. And then the last one, Brad, is freedom. And freedom is an interesting one because people typically think freedom means I'm free from having to do the things I don't want to do. That's freedom, right? Oh, I'm free. I can just lie on the couch all day, right? Freedom is when you begin to feel that alignment of your inner world and your external world, right? The awareness, commitment, mastery, service, leadership, and freedom. It's like it's all coming together. And the way that I describe freedom is this who you are on the inside is no different than who you are on the outside. And so I always say, what you see is what you get. So that no matter what conversation you're in with anybody, you're wherever you go, there you are. right? That happens regardless of whether you like yourself or not. But in this state of freedom, and you begin to say, yes, I do like being with myself. So wherever you are, wherever you go, there you are, begins to feel good. And so there's that. And then all of that is the energy of harmony. And this harmony being that you have this wonderful tool to see the world, this wonderful lens to see the world through, like this lens of harmony. Like, because whatever situation is coming up, you are fully going to it, embracing and embodying your healthiest version of yourself. And so, yeah, does bad stuff still happen? Every day, right? All the time. But how you manage it now from a state of harmony, because your inner world and your external world are in alignment, and who you are is someone who can have someone be in their face, right? And you recognize that when they're in their face, it's most likely them, not you. And so you can respond, and that is true no matter what, right? No matter what kind of mood you're in, it's usually them, not you, when they're in your face, right? But from this place of harmony, you can say, geez, you seem really upset. Is there something I can do to help? Instead of like, F you, shut up. Like, what are you doing? Right? Like, you're not going to respond like that because you're in a state of harmony, right? And you're going to be like, can I help? Is there something I can do? And that's, I have to tell you that that is the best medicine because people are typically coming at you because they want to rile you up. But in a state of harmony, you're going to be like, wow, what's wrong with you? In a nice way, right? What can I do for you? Instead of like re overreacting. And so, wouldn't that then, Brad, be the best natural state, right?
Yeah, when you look at things, I there's a lot of people that try to bait you into conversations and try to make you kind of stoop to their level, and I personally don't get into that kind of pissing match with
Mhm.
people. And if I can sit and have a debate with almost anybody on any subject, give me a little time
Mhm.
to do some research, I'm going to come full at you, and you're going to probably crumble if it's not something you're going to be an expert in, right? It's like
Right.
anything you talk about: understanding, learning, mastering, then teaching, and then
Hmm.
understanding internally, and then coaching externally, right?
Right, right.
I think that's big for a lot of people, is to understand that every journey starts within. And once you start to understand your journey, you can figure a way to teach it and coach it and mentor it to other people. But you have to get your journey underway and be good at what you're doing to
That's
fix
right.
it, to be able to help others.
And not even just be good at it. I think you have to master it. And so people are like, oh, I'm going to give up then. But you have to define what mastery means to you, right? Like you, because when I finished writing the book Harmony, I said to my husband, I don't know what this book means. And he's like, Robin, you have said that with the other four books too. Because I'm so busy writing it and I'm so busy downloading information and putting it out there and really going into this container that sometimes I'm not taking the time to really understand it. And yet I do, because how else could I write it, right? But then there comes a point, Brad, where to me, mastery is for me as a writer of books that I want to help people is, do I understand it? Do I understand it enough to come on your podcast and tell you what mastery is? Have I mastered it enough to tell you what mastery is? Right? To tell you what service and leadership and freedom are. I took me 2 months to do my first podcast after my book was published because I didn't quite feel that I mastered it enough to move into service with it, to speak, to do the speaking part of my service.
Some of that is also comfort. Once you've written something, putting it out there and then talking about it sometimes is a hard thing. It's like journaling, anything else. It's easy to write something down introspective, but then feed it out to people as a perspective is kind of hard to do.
Right. And it is something I'm pretty good at is writing things that people understand. I had one of my cousins read Feast and Famine, and she said she was really scared, but then she wrote back and said, "This is like spirituality for dummies." And I'm like, "Okay, I guess that's a compliment. Thank you." Um, but she's like, "I was scared to read this book that I wouldn't get it." And but to me, that's mastery, right? Right? Like if you can't say it to someone in a way, if you can't speak to someone in a way that you're talking to them, not talking to yourself, right? Sometimes you hear people talking, you're like, what the hell are they? Why do they have to be the smartest person in the room? Why can't they just be the one that explains things well? And that's why I like to do podcasts because I feel like that's just a gift that I've always had. Even in my corporate days, I was a corporate controller for a big insurance company, and they made me be the controller for all of the departments that didn't understand numbers like marketing and the law department and the government department. They just human resources. They're like, you go explain budgeting to them. If you can do that, we'll be thrilled. And so that's what I did. I spent years with them, making sure that they were good corporate citizens, not overspending, understanding their budgets. But I had to say it way differently than I would when I would go back to the finance department and have a conversation with them. But that's what you have to learn, that communication when you're talking to someone else is not about you. It shouldn't be self-centered, meaning self-facing. Your communication should be outward facing. And that's what I knew that I needed to really be able to say all of this in a way that makes sense to people.
Yeah, and you got to reach the entire spectrum of people too, right? You can write a very technical document and then 80% just stare at you with glazed over look. And what good is that if you're not reaching people to actually explain to a point that they can understand? And I've sometimes had trouble like that when I've tried to explain things, and then I got to remember to kind of go back and kind of go the why behind some of the things that you talk about. And that's very important for people to understand, is kind of the why behind something you know
Yes, why is very important. And to ask, is there something, can I say this differently? That might help you to understand what point I'm trying to make. And again, it's about being patient all the time in all of your communications, because probably half the time people aren't even listening. They're so distracted.
Taking a quick pause here. If this episode is resonating, I would love for you to follow the No One Is Normal podcast on whatever platform you listen on. Every follow helps this show reach people who might need these stories. Now let's jump back in. Most people are listening to speak, not listening to learn, right?
Yes. Yes, for sure.
That's one of the hard things, and you see it all the time. I'm in meetings, and you see people that are just kind of, you got 12 people on a screen, and then two of them are just sitting there like, get me out of this meeting, and then the other two are just not even paying attention to what you're saying, and they're thinking about
Hmm.
what they're gonna say, and then the other 20%, 30% are lost, and then the other portion of that is, why am I in this meeting? you know, so
Yeah.
you get a kind of a wide spectrum, and like you being from corporate, you get to see that, and like now you see it a lot more in boardrooms. You kind of got to look around for people on a screen. You can see everybody just sitting there, and you can see what they're doing, and you can be like, okay, yeah, this is definitely not going well, or it's going great, and
Hmm.
it's kind of
Yeah.
crazy.
And people have things, and then some people are just shy, right? They're not going to be the one that talks over other people. Like the Zoom world, I think, for business meetings has caused a lot of bad etiquette. And not on purpose. but it's hard to, you can't like raise your hand. You can, but nobody sees it, right? There is a little icon where you raise your hand. So if you have something to say, it's almost like you just gotta get in there and say it, right? And so it makes it hard. So when I'm leading a meeting and people are talking, I'm looking at the other people to see who really has something to say, because you can tell when someone has something to say. You can tell by their expression whether it's a good something to say or an angry something to say. Whatever it is, I try to find those people and say, I'd like to hear from Brad. Brad, do you have thoughts on this? And then people are comfortable enough when I'm in meetings to say, no, I really don't. I'm like, okay, thanks. And then I move on, right? But they usually do have something to say.
And I can relate to that a little bit. I'm more of a thinker than versus a speaker. Not sure why. I can write like the Dickens, but for me to stand and give a grandiose speech, I slur a little bit, I stutter, and that's just who I am. I'm working at it, trying to do what I can, but it's still important for me to one be able to write it down, but also to share it for people. I think some of what gets lost in kind of what both you and I are talking about is people's ability to openly talk about something. Everybody is afraid to say something because they're afraid of ridicule. There's a lot where people can cause damage to your human ego and your psyche. But at the same point, when you don't talk about those things, they just fester.
Well, yeah, I mean, a lot of people, I imagine, had the same fear that I had, the same trauma pattern, humiliation, being afraid of being humiliated, and then the shame that you feel once you're humiliated. I can't imagine that that's not an epidemic in this country, right? Because even when you're in social media, people's comments, it's like, what happened to the old adage, if you have nothing nice to say, don't say anything at all? Like, what happened that people think that now they can say the most horrible things to people, write them down? Is it because you're not face to face, so there's no repercussions? But still, I believe that this way that we communicate is really leads to deep humiliation and shame.
Yeah, well, that's one of the things that I tend to really kind of try to push out is that, what people think about me is none of my concern.
Yes, I love that.
Because if I can keep people's nonsense away from my
Mhm.
personal experience, then I won't dwell on it and I won't have to even think about it. And it'll really piss them off because they're seeing I'm not even affected by it and you can do whatever you want. I'm just gonna see ya, walk away, and
And
you're gonna
and
be
that
mad and upset, and I'll be happy as right as rain.
Yeah, that one of the things that I when I was learning to uh not be impacted when people were judging me was I started to practice the pause. And the pause is when you don't respond for at least 20 seconds. Don't respond at all. Just look at them. Like they've said something, just look at them and don't say anything for 20 seconds while you have a chance to think about how you want to respond, right? And it gives you a chance to uh, allow the emotions to come down, right? The trauma hit, right? Like they're hitting on you, right? And then what I've noticed when I practice the pause is that when the other person has said something to me that's hurtful, they usually jump in with an apology when there's a chance there. Just when they're like, wow, I'm so sorry I said that. Or, wow, sorry. Like, because they couldn't control themselves. Though then practicing the pause allows me to say, it stops them from me feeling like they're judging me because I get to calm down. And then again, I can respond, is there something wrong? How can I help? Or, you know what? You are a jerk and I never want to talk to you again. Goodbye.
That is actually a kind of a psychological itch. Most people can't stand that silence.
Yes.
They're like, oh, I got to do something. Either I got to apologize, I said something that offended them, or I don't know what's going on. Why are they not talking? What is going on? Like, it really messes with people when you create that silent window for a little bit and you're like, oh, what do I do?
So wouldn't you say that silence is the best response?
Could be. It definitely prevents you from saying something stupid,
Well,
right?
it prevents you from saying something stupid. It allows them to reflect on what they said. Um, yeah. And it could de-escalate the situation, right? Because if you're
Hmm.
not ready to respond, um, don't respond. Don't respond because you don't want to jump out of harmony. If you're really actively practicing the harmony method and you get to this place where you're feeling like who you are on your inner world is reflected on your outer world, and it could be in every interaction. So if you're having calm and peace in your inner world, you don't want to overreact in your outer world unless it's a safety issue, right?
Hmm.
Right? Then you definitely want to overreact. But if you're practicing peace inside of yourself so that you can be peaceful on the outside, you don't want to be the one that's like keeping the argument going. And believe me, everybody, there are people in our life that are here for a reason, a season, or a lifetime.
Hmm.
And those people that are here for a reason and maybe a season, well, all of them, lifetime, they have a way that they come in to interact with us to help us grow, right? And help us decide how we're going to be in relationship with others. Well, first of all, how are we going to be in relationship with ourselves, with our own soul energy first, then ourselves as a human being, and then
Hmm.
them, right?
Right.
And there's some people that you're like, why is this person in my life? Right? But if you could figure that out, then you can learn from that and then you can choose what to do next,
Right.
right? But if you allow them to knock you into a disharmonious state, then that's really on you until you figure that out and then you choose. Because I love Mel Robbins' book, Let Them. That's a great new book, probably the most popular book in the world now, and sold millions of copies.
Hmm.
And the thing is, the idea that no matter what someone does or says or does, you just say let them because you can't change what they're doing. So instead of reacting, you say let them. But then you have to say let me. And that let me is what am I going to do next? Now that they've done that, let them, right? Let them be who
Hmm.
they are because you can't change them, right? Let them this is them, let them do it. This is how they're going to be. By even saying the words let them, it's another version of the pause, right?
Right.
It's just you have words to in it now. Let them. But then you have to immediately also say, let me. And let's let me decide how I'm going to do this. Now, does that mean you even have to respond then? Of course not. You can say, I'd like to think about what you said and I'd like to discontinue this conversation. I'll get back to you. And just walk away.
Yeah, and when you look at things too, it's so you probably have a better chance of pushing your house 50 feet than you do of changing people's minds sometimes. You know, it is amazing how, like, with everything going on in this world, you could have full evidence in front of you, but still believe your belief because you don't want to be wrong or you don't want to be corrected on it, you know? And that's one of those things that it's kind of maddening. You can come to the table with, here's some of the things that I'm seeing. Are you seeing the same thing? And they say, no. Well, how? You know, perception sometimes is more vivid than truth.
And in and in relationship with others. I think perception is king. Like I believe that if someone has a perception about something that I'm doing or not doing, I have to really honor that. That's their perception. Like, and then I just have to choose whether or not I'm going to think about changing that or helping them to change that or just accept that that's their perception of me and what I'm doing. And so I do believe that even if someone did something to me and my perception is something, and then they're like, well, that's not what I mean. I'm like, but that's how I perceive it. So in my world, perception is king. And it's king for me and it's king for the other person. If I'm doing something that someone else perceives in a negative light, then I have to decide what I'm going to do. So I just love that perception is king, because meaning that if someone has this different perception and you're trying that you can either say, well, I guess we don't see eye to eye on this, but you can't say to them your perception is wrong. Because it's their perception of what they're seeing in you, and you can decide whether you want to change something about how you're communicating with them, or you can just say, "Well, I'm sorry you're perceiving it this way. It's not what I mean, and I'm sticking with what I'm saying, and I guess we agree to disagree, or we, whatever, right? Whatever is coming next." But yeah, no, perception is a tough one, Brad, right? Because honestly, the media is just you can look up a certain topic and get 10 different views on it from 10 different types of what even this war that we're in, right? Which is there's even a 10 different perceptions whether it's a war.
Yeah, nobody can agree on it.
Nobody can agree on that, right? So what do, right? And so when you're in conversation with anyone else, you have to just honor the fact that they're choosing to listen to a certain news cycle that may not be what you're listening to. I have a friend who believes in a lot of different things than me, and at dinner I'm like, so what are you believing now? Like, what are you up to? What I was just curious, and she started yelling at me. And I just said, listen, I am not insulting you. I am not trying to argue a point. I just want to know what my friend's thinking right now. And she's like, well, I'm not used to that. People usually don't want to know what I'm thinking. I'm like, I don't know. I find you interesting and I'm curious to know what's driving you these days. And and so it's a matter of staying in the middle, right? It's a matter of allowing because there's something called duality, Brad, and duality is black and white, hot and cold. And there used to be a lot of duality between black and white and hot and cold and whatever for the Iran war, not for the Iran war. There used to be something called duality where there was a lot of gray area and people could have whatever opinion they wanted, and there was enough gray area for people to say, well, I don't agree with her, but whatever. But it seems like with all of the pressures in the world, duality has collapsed on itself. And so here's black, here's white, here's for the war. I'm not for the war. Like I'm showing people can't see my hands, but there's like no space between the endpoints. It's like we're stuck together, black and white. We're stuck together. I'm for the war. I'm not for the war. We're stuck together. And so there's no room for you to have a different opinion from me without me getting upset or vice versa. And so we have to learn that it's just people's opinion, but it's just unfortunate that the media does whatever it can to perpetuate the disgruntled energies of people.
Well, it's all based off of ratings, right? Propaganda, sensationalism.
Right,
When you
money.
create that oh my God, something's happening, and then people watch. Well, now you got money, advertising comes in, and I just keep feeding that because that is a key for success. And it's like that's great, but that's where we have black and white, and that gray area has just disappeared over time because you only have the two views. You don't have the room for a middle ground
Right.
anymore. It's been
There
kind of taken
isn't.
away from us.
It's been taken away, and that is what I think is the shame, right? And as a spiritual teacher, I had to learn to live in the middle. It's lonely in there, but I can't take sides, right? Because if I'm helping others, I have to write from the center regardless of whether it's not there anymore, because I have to honor the fact that we all have our opinions, and who the heck, and honestly, Brad, who knows which one is right? I mean, I don't even think it's that's what's scary, right? Because there's just so much coming at us to distract us and you know do this so we don't see that, do that so we don't see this, right? I don't know who's right and who's wrong, so I stay in the middle and I just listen and I just send out prayers to our world that we don't implode.
Yeah, and that's the hard thing I think is, you're so bombarded with things, and it's meant to get you to react. And that there's so much that just completely destroys your inner peace just from having it, like your phone in your hand. You're always getting data, you're always getting information, you're always getting something that's feeding some sort of a response internally. So I mean, that's got to be hard. And like, how do you stay grounded when life becomes chaotic again?
Yeah, and so I think the key is to really try to stay off your phone. And I'm bad too, right? Looking, because I have a Facebook page and an Instagram page and a YouTube page and I'm like, okay, is anybody like me? Kind of thing. And I'm looking around and I'm like, oh my God, get off. And then of course, once you start looking at your own pages, then you start doing the feed, right? Right. And then you're like, oh my God, I'm doom scrolling. So every once in a while, I love when someone says, what are you doing? Stop scrolling, go to bed. And I'm like, thank you, whoever you are out there.
Well, that's like what we're doing right now. We have to have social media to be able to share with other people. And that just creates that extra vacuum for people like us trying to talk and communicate with other people and then trying to share with the world. Well, it just kind of creates this extra little bit of vacuum for us where we have to turn off the phone if we aren't doing this. But I have to respond to people's comments. I have to post things. I have to do this and that and the other thing to kind of keep this to where hopefully I can reach people. And some of that just creates that internal, like, well, I'm just getting blasted for something I said, and it's like,
Hmm.
man, it's kind of crazy, but I think we got to have strong, broad shoulders to be able to kind of carry the weight of the world when people are going to attack you no matter what you do.
Are you old enough, Brad, to remember when at midnight the TV would just like
Hmm.
die? Like, and it'd be like gray and
Beep.
yeah.
Yep.
That's what we need to do with our phones. Like, it would be really awesome if social media did that. If it went like, okay, everybody go to bed, right? Or do it for yourself. Like make it like you're using that as the example, right?
Hmm.
Put your phone somewhere else, right? Leave it on ring so if a family member needs you, but there's nothing going on in the world that can't wait till the morning. Um, yeah, nothing, right?
Right.
And I don't think people expect you to reach out to them in the middle of the night. They probably don't want you to. Even if they made a comment in the middle of the night, they don't want their phone ringing, right? When they're scrolling and their partner is sleeping, right? So, uh, yeah, yeah, I'm gonna pretend that. I'm gonna pretend that social media closes at 11.
Oh yeah, that's one of the crazy things too. Is like I don't know if you remember the Truman Show, the movie, where at the end, when all of a sudden the show kind of ended, people are like, "Well, what do I do now?" You know, I think you'd have that reaction because we've been so in tune to it. If you started turning it off at like 8 o'clock and then nothing happening, you're like, "This is weird. How come I'm not getting bombarded with everything going on?"
When I was so the books that I write are spiritually guided, and I was asked to write harmony, and I wasn't doing it, and I needed to finish the book. And all of a sudden, I lost LinkedIn, then I lost Facebook, Instagram, and WhatsApp, because they're all part of the same thing. I completely lost all my accounts. They said I was doing something I wasn't. And I had and even when I fought them, they said, no, we've decided you're still doing that thing you aren't really doing. And so I took it as a sign from the universe that I should get off social media and finish the book. And I have to tell you, it was the best 6 months ever of not knowing, not being on social media. I missed seeing my kids' posts, but I told them, just text me your posts if you think I would enjoy it. So I know it's a little extra work for you, but if you went somewhere special or something happened at work and you want me to know, text it to me because I can't see it on Instagram anymore. But oh my God, it was such a relief to not be worried, not scrolling. So I don't know, maybe we should take a break, right? Or just pretend it's closed at 11 p.m. or 10 p.m. Turn your phone off. And it's hard because I think we're all kind of addicted to it.
So, what would you say to someone who feels trapped in their struggle right now?
I would say to begin to recognize that the struggle is the addiction, right? The struggle is the suffering. I mean, struggle and suffering are kind of, I think you could use them interchangeably, and that you need to understand what is behind it. So to go and get the help that you need so that you can begin to see the patterns that have led up to this struggling. What are you doing? How do you have childhood healing that needs to take place, teenage healing, adult healing? Like, are things that have happened in your life, you've just, swept them under the rug and now they're back to for you to look at. And the fact that you believe that you're struggling and that you want to do something about it, kudos to you. And I'm clapping for you because that's a state of awareness. Remember the first stage? And now as long as you're aware of it, now you can go on to commitment, the next phase of the harmony method. Make a commitment. How am I going to work on this struggle so that I can move beyond it? And there's so many ways to do that. So many ways. So many tools out there, but you have to make the commitment to be better.
So, what does living in harmony look like for you today?
Mm. Well, it was interesting. Every my New Year's Eve, my husband and I look at things that happened in the year before during, 2020, 25, that we have a little fire ceremony and we look at 2025 and we write them down and we throw them in to the little tiny little fire pit that we make. And then um, we also write down the things that we want to improve. And what I found was that even though I had things that went bad, they didn't really bother me enough that I'd want to burn them because I dealt with them from a place of harmony, right? So that they didn't have the same flame, even to stay with that analogy, that they did before. They didn't have the same emotional charge. So that's when I realized, wow, that's what the harmony is, right? Is that even though bad things happen, they don't impact you like they used to. They don't trigger you like they used to. So I still wrote down bad things, but I'm like, okay, I'll just throw them in there because that's the exercise we're doing. But in the past, when I would write them, I'd be like, yeah, good riddance to you, right? And I'd be like throwing them in the fire, like, don't come back. And I'm like, all right, if you come back, I guess there's something else I need to learn, right? It just was this different way of looking at strife when you're not emotionally charged by it.
Yeah, everything that you do in life can bring forth a lesson, no
Hmm.
matter what it is. And if you
Yeah.
really, you can dwell on everything, but if you look back and reflect and say, okay, that was a lesson, there's something I can learn from that, and you actually take that in and you learn from
Yeah.
it, that actually starts a kind of the healing process, I believe.
Oh, totally. Totally. Because you're willing to look at the patterns. And honestly, that's where we started. You will see a pattern.
Hmm.
You will see the same pattern because I was like, oh my gosh, look at that. I was humiliated. So someone might say, well, how do you remember those times? You always remember those times, right? You could be washing dishes or painting, right? Painting a wall, and you'll be like, "Ugh, why am I thinking about the time my older brother embarrassed me in front of like at this party? Like, why am I thinking about that? Or why, right? Like they come up at the weirdest times, right? And to me, that's always they're coming up for healing. There's like it's like they're that part of you that was hurt is saying, is it time now? Can we look at this? Can we put out the emotional charge and can we say, okay, that happened, but okay, I forgive
Hmm.
you. I forgive myself. I forgive you, right? But when we don't do that, when we don't do the work, the inner work, they just come up and you're like, yeah, stupid jerk, like, rah, rah, right? And you're still painting, and then you move on to the next thing, and then you're painting again, and then some other memory comes up, right? It's like, I'm coming up for healing. Are you ready for healing? And you're like, no, no, I hate that person. I hope they're gone already from this earth. And other times you'll be like, wow, what is that? Why do I keep thinking about this? And that's what I did. I looked at all of those and saw that there was a pattern, and it was humiliation and shame. And once I could realize that that's what my addiction was doing, the eating disorder and the bulimia was protecting me from being humiliated and shamed. Once I really understood what was going on there, then I could move into mastery and understand that. And then I could come out here and talk to everybody about it.
Well, thank you for being a guest on the show.
Yes,
If
Brad.
someone is listening and wants to explore your
Yeah.
work, to
Yes.
begin their own journey towards harmony, where should they start?
Yeah, so the easiest way is to go to my website, which is Harmony with Robin, Robin. So harmonywithrobin.com, and you'll find all kinds of good stuff on there. And I have a simple way of working with me. I have this little two-page report I can give you on a very specific question or situation you have going on in your life. I have all my wonderful podcast visits there and blogs and all different things. So take a look, and I look forward to connecting with all of you.
Fantastic. Well, thank you, Robin.
You're welcome, Brad. Take care.
Harmony is often described as something peaceful or effortless, but the truth is that it usually comes from years of work that most people never see. Robin's story is a reminder that healing rarely happens all at once. It happens through awareness, through small daily choices, and through the willingness to look honestly at the parts of life that feel uncomfortable or unresolved. What stands out in this conversation is the idea that harmony is not about controlling the world around us. It's about learning how to respond to it without losing our center. If this episode resonated, it may be because many people are navigating their own versions of that search for alignment, the work of understanding where they are, what needs to change, and how to move forward with clarity rather than reaction. To learn more about Robin's work and the Harmony Method, you can visit her website and explore the resources she shares for those beginning their own path toward healing and balance. Just a reminder, the stories and conversations in this podcast are for informational and personal reflection only. Nothing shared here should be taken as medical, legal, or professional advice. Always speak with a qualified professional about your own personal situation. Thank you for listening to No One Is Normal. If today's message resonated with you, you can find the book No One Is Normal on Amazon and Kindle, and explore more resources at www.bradhhill.com or www.nooneisnormal.co. Remember, you weren't meant to be normal, you were meant to be you.